God is most high, and there's nothing that he doesn't know. Sometimes we get into a situation where we think, like, man, God's not even here. God doesn't even hear me. I recently heard somebody, I think I heard it or saw it posted on Facebook, and they said, I don't even know if God hears me. Elion hears you. He is the Most High God that hears and sees everything. Young people, I hope and pray that you can get this into your spirit. You can understand who we're talking about. There's nothing that God does not see. There's nothing that God does not know. There's nothing that God hasn't allowed or knows about. We think that sometimes God is over there and he just doesn't know what I'm going through. He doesn't even see me. He doesn't even hear me. I cry and he doesn't hear me. God hears you. Elion, the God Most High, hears you. And the last scripture. The last name of God is El Shaddai. Have you ever heard that name, El Shaddai? Does anyone know what it means? El Shaddai? El Shaddai means all-sufficient one. In Genesis 17:1, he says to Abraham, we're talking again to Abraham, and he tells Abraham, I am God Almighty, El Shaddai. El Shaddai means sufficient, adequate, enough, ample, satisfactory, enough to meet the need. That is what all-sufficient one means. At this point, when he tells Abraham this name, he tells Abraham, I am El Shaddai. Abraham was 99 years old and had no children. He was desperately trying to have a child, a successor, someone to carry his name. And God tells him, I am El Shaddai. And God told him that he would have a son. God comes to Abraham, and Abraham's like stressing out because he's 99, I'm an old age, I'm going to die soon, and I don't have a son. And back in those times, a son was very important. Women weren't considered the ones to carry on the name. Women weren't given all the inheritance. It was a son, the firstborn son. And so, in those times, the men did anything desperately to try to have a son, to carry on the name, to carry on the power, the authority, the family heritage. And so Abraham was desperately trying to have a son, and he's 99 years old, and he still hasn't had one. And so Abraham, the Bible talks about it, he starts to plot. How can I have a son? Like, what am I going to do? Sarah, my wife, she's not having a kid. What's up? And so they're trying to figure out a way. They're trying to think of another way. Maybe if I get my servant girl pregnant, I can have a son with her. And they start planning this out, and they're starting to plot. And God is coming in, and he's saying, Abraham, I am El Shaddai. I'm all you need. I am the sufficient one that will supply your son, that will give you your son. And God even tells him, I will make your descendants as numbered as the sand. The sand in the world, all the little grains of sand. He tells him, that's how many descendants you will have. I will give you your son, and I will give you as many descendants as the sand, as a grain of sand. And he was telling Abraham, quit running, quit hiding, quit seeking other ways. I am the one who will supply your need. He is everything we could ever need. I don't know if it's happened to you, but it seems like when situations come into my life, when things happen, it seems like it's so much easier to turn to somebody else or turn to another thing, and we're like trying to figure out how we're going to get money. And I remember at a time in Victoria that we were broke, like broke. We were newlyweds and we had zero money, and we're in a little one-bedroom apartment, and Jake wasn't going to get paid for like another week. Like, we still had a whole week, like 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks, and we had no stinking money at all. And we didn't know what to do, and I already had called my parents and asked for money. They had already given us money, and we wasted that money. It was just a part of desperation. And so we didn't know what to do. So what's the next best thing? Sell blood, sell plasma, or pawn things, right? And I remember it was such a hard time for Jake, because Jake loves his instruments. Jake has tons of guitars and basses and amps and everything. And I remember that day, he was like, well, I'll pawn a guitar. And I'm like, really? No, you don't have to. Like, no. And he's like, yeah, I'll go pawn it. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, yeah. And then it was literally just breaking his heart to have to go pawn the guitar. It was a guitar and an amp. I don't remember. Anyways. And we were so desperate at that moment. We were so desperate for money. We were so desperate. It was one of those times that it was just like, break the piggy bank, put all the pennies together. We're eating ramen noodles like every night just to try to save money. And it seems like in those moments, God is the last thing we turn to. We're trying to find everything else, and how are we going to do this? And I can sell this, and I can sell that. And God is saying that's where Abraham was. He was at that moment of desperation, and God is telling him, Abraham, I'm all you need. I'm the all-sufficient one. I'm El Shaddai. You don't need anything else. I will provide your needs. I will love you. I will comfort you. I will give you peace. I will give you whatever you need. I've got it. I'm El Shaddai. Whatever you lack, I've got it. And that's what he was telling Abraham in this passage. When we realize that he is El Shaddai, that he is all I need, then we can come running to him to tell him our problems. When we realize that he is everything that we need, we can come to him and say, you know what, God, this is what I need. This is who I need you to be. And I'm going to close with this. I remember as a little girl, I've been blessed to have a wonderful, 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 loving father. My dad, he's tough. If you see him, he's tough. He's got big muscles. He's tough. He's a hard worker. He really is. Huh? He really is. He's a hard worker. But yet he's so loving. And he's very loving with us girls. Me and my sisters. And I remember as a little girl, maybe getting hurt, being injured. And I got injured quite a bit. I was pretty tough myself. But I got injured quite a bit too. I have the scars to prove them. And it seemed like every single time that I got injured or hurt, it's just, I wanted Dad. I wanted Daddy. Daddy could fix everything. Daddy could do anything. Daddy can say the exact right words. I mean, there's something about Mom. Yes, Mom has a wonderful, special place. But I don't know, it's something with little girls and dads. It's those strong arms. It's that security that you feel. And I remember as a little girl, one time we were here at church, and we used to have a merry-go-round, and it was it's just one of those old merry-go-rounds, like made out of metal. You remember with those little handles? Yeah. Okay. And of course, like every little kid, we'd stand there and like try to make it go faster. Remember, like you stand there and you hit the. Does anybody remember this? Y'all were too young for merry-go-rounds. The older folks, okay. And you would stand there, and everybody would stand there to try to make the merry-go-round go faster. And then once it would go fast, you jump on, and so you like hold on to the bar, and you're like being dragged around by the merry-go-round. I don't know how old I was, but we were in the back playing, and it was like a church picnic or something. Everybody was here, everybody was outside, and we were in the back. The kids were in the back, where the back building is now. There used to be a playground, and it had a merry-go-round. And so anyways, I'm back there going crazy. I'm gonna jump. Merry-go-round. And when I jumped, I didn't quite make it. And I cut somehow, I don't know, I cut my elbows and my knees. Bad. With the metal, the side of the metal. So I'm like, oh, like standing there crying. And I remember just telling him, call my dad. Go call my dad. And so I remember the other little girls, I don't remember who it was, but they took off running, and they're like screaming, and like blood is gushing out, and like I'm there on the floor. My elbows and my knees are scraped up. And all I wanted was my dad. That's all I wanted. He could fix it. He could do something. He could help me stop the bleeding. And so I remember I was over there in the back in the grass in the sun and the heat. And I remember kind of seeing my dad from the corner of my eye coming. And I could see him, and I was just so happy to see him. And he just looked at me, and he's like, hi. And he carried me in his arms like that. And he walked me over, and I remember they even like called the EMS to make sure that it wasn't bad. They cleaned me up. but just the safety of being in his arms. It was just like, everything's okay now. Dad got me. And he had me like that. And those moments that we run to him, and that I ran to my dad. And I remember another time that, again, I was here at church. I spent my whole life here. I was here at church, and I got my hand over there where that fence is going to the Boys Scouts. It used to be a barbed wire fence. And I don't know what I was trying to get from the other side of the fence, but when I went like that, I pulled up, and the barbed wire got me right there on this finger. So I was stuck on the barbed wire. And my dad was cutting the grass. And I would scream. And my dad was just cutting the grass. Like that. Like that. So my brother came and unhooked my finger. And we were running to my dad to chase him on the lawnmower. And to get his attention. And the minute we got his attention, he stopped the lawnmower. He takes care of me and wraps my little finger. And we run inside and he cleans it. And it seemed like every single time I would run to him, I would run to my dad. It was like he had the perfect solution. He had the perfect thing to say. He had the perfect everything. It was just that comfort that I needed. It was that love that I needed, that attention. He stopped what he was doing. He gave me his undivided attention, and he just secured me. And it's that feeling of security. It's that feeling of just being loved. And this is my final story with this. And my last time, one of the most memorable ones was I was already in college. I was at LABI in Bible school, and some old, ugly boy broke my heart. It was his fault. He broke my heart. And it was a Jake. But he broke my heart. And I was devastated. That was the one I loved. And he really broke my heart. And I called my dad that afternoon, and I was just like crying with my mom and dad. I talked to my mom, and then I talked to my dad. And I was like, he doesn't want me. He broke up with me. And like, what am I gonna do? I'm never gonna find anybody. Like, it's just this, and he's so mean, and blah blah blah. And I'm like spilling my guts out to my dad. And I remember we got off the phone, nothing. And I'm in college, mind you. I'm 18 years old at this time. And it was just one of those heartbreaks. And I remember, got off the phone, that's it. I went on about my way. And the very next day in Bible school, we were sitting in class, and they called my name. Somebody came to the door, knocked on the door, and was like, Joanne. Again, Joanne. They called me Joanne, and I went, and like, what happened? What's going on? They're like, oh, you have a delivery here. And I was like, what, for me? Like, who would send me? Like, I just broke my heart. Who would send me anything? And so I go to the office, and there's a dozen red roses from my daddy. And on there's a note. And it says, I'll be there before the next teardrop falls. And I just melted. And it seemed like every time I needed my dad, every time that I needed that assurance, every time I needed it, he was there. And can I tell you that God, El Shaddai, the all-sufficient one, is here. Whatever you need, whatever you ask, he's here. Like the Father just standing here. Come here, Mija. Let me love you. What is it? You're hurt? It's okay. You're crying? It's okay. Let me dry those tears. You need money? I'm going to help you. I'm going to bless you. Whatever it is, God, El Shaddai, the most sufficient, everything that we could need is here. All we have to do is cry out. He is the Creator. He's the Elohim, the Creator. He's Elyon, the Most High God. And above all, he's El Shaddai. All sufficient. He's everything that we need. Will you stand?